Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and indeed the public that might be following it online. The Community Services Committee meeting of the 15th of February. Do we have any record of the meeting? Recording of the meeting? Okay, no one's recording it, are they? Apart from a live show. Apologies for absence. Have we got any?
Councillor Mrs. Newton.
I thought she was going to be here, actually.
Chairman, can I, sorry, I was waving. She had hoped to be at this meeting. Her husband has just come out of hospital yesterday after quite a long time in Lister, and Councillor Newton herself has had the COVID symptoms, and not only, I mean, and she's been tested. She's been quite ill and is now better enough. Oh, here she is.
Okay.
So that's she's materialised.
Councillor Newton, how lovely to see you.
Oh, hello.
Looking well.
Thank you.
Right, we shall push on then. Declarations of interest. Have we got any? I've got a finger there. Joseph? No? The minutes of the last meeting. Excuse me if I'm shouting because I've got, if I don't, you won't hear me. Confirm as correct the minutes being held on the 30th of November 2020 and to authorize the chairman to sign the same. All those in favour?
I propose, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. Proposed by Councillor Ruffles that the minutes is
I'll
read.
second them.
Second by Mrs. Rosemary Bolton. Thank you. Everyone in favour? No one against. Okay. All right. Paper A is our first move forward. So we've got the iron gates at the top of the first page, and the committee will be updated further in April 21. I'm not going to read it out because everyone will have these and will have read them. So if there's a question, you'll raise your hand. Woodlands and Cycle Path and Other Springs, February 21, no further updates. Anything of worth, any issues there? Okay. So we move on to questions and or statements from members of the public. Have we got any? Nick?
Chairman, none. No, none.
Okay. Right, here we go. Allotments, statistics and maintenance. Receive the report of the paper on page 7. Get there. Right, you have all of the figures and availabilities on there. Any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
All right, Councillor Dow.
I just wondered, I saw that the vacancies at Cromwell Road are 13 and the waiting list is 28. And I just wondered, see, that seems to be, is it possible to, there seems to be a bit of a contradiction there between.
As I understand it, these are recently vacated plots that have been or are being prepared for new occupancies. And Nick, have you anything further to add on that?
No, Chairman, that is correct. There are recent ones that are being prepared, correct.
Okay. I know we are now adopting the policy of when a site is vacated, of preparing it and getting rid of the rubbish. So the new incumbent plot holder would have a better chance of getting started. Does that satisfy you, Councillor?
Okay, so that waiting list will halve quite quickly.
It will. I will hope by the next time we meet, there will not be a waiting list. We will be occupied fully.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, page 8. Again, it's
Councillor, I think, had a question as well.
sorry,
No, I was jumping at
hand.
page. I'm waiting
Sorry,
for
I
page
can't-
9.
because
Page
I'm on,
9, Chairman, when you're there.
sorry,
I've
because
got
I'm on the
I've got a,
laptop, I'm not seeing everybody's face. So forgive me if I miss you out. Do shout.
Chairman, sorry,
Yes, Councillor.
sorry. I'd also just like to say is the reason why we have so many plots coming up at the moment is because we've had to spend extra time allowing people who may have had COVID or had certain problems to address whether or not they want to come back or not. And obviously, Susie had given them a little bit of leeway, when we've had this, because we were unsure whether some people were giving it up, weren't giving it up. And obviously, we have been a little bit more considerate before, obviously, when you're doing notice to quit, you obviously have to find out exactly why they were quitting, if they want to give it up, if they want to relinquish it, or if they've got ill health.
Councillors with a heart.
Yes, sorry, thank you.
Page 9, allotment site vacated list. You also have at the top the number of that are available. And then we have the allotment maintenance work completed. Again, I'm looking up to see if anyone has any questions. I can't see everybody, unfortunately, so you might have to shout. Okay. Still continue with paper B on page 10. Update of improvements and planned works. Paper B is recommended that the committee note the report. Okay. Next, we go on to page 11 and paper C.
Can I just ask, sorry, I can see there's a member of the public, Mr. Angles, is on. I mean, I thought that wasn't announced at the beginning, which is fine, but is this Mr. Angles has joined us? Shouldn't it we be noting that a member of the public has joined the meeting?
Is there any difficulties with that, Town Clerk?
No, Mr. Chairman, it's a public meeting, and in order to attend, Mr. Angles would have needed to contact Mr. Kirby to get the link. So that's all fine.
Okay, no problems. Welcome, Mr. Angles. Terry. Paper C, page 11, we have the allotment site report by Liz Hoy, the manager of the community, Mudlarks community allotment. Page 11, any comments? Continuing on paper C, page 12.
Yes, Chairman.
Yeah.
At the bottom of page 11, top of page 12, there's reference to the work that Mudlarks have done clearing plots. And I'm sure that's welcome in itself because it's a difficulty for us. But I just wanted to understand a little bit better where they undertake such work. Is there contract, as it were, with the tenant, or in some way with us? I assumed it was with the tenant, but wanted to be sure.
It is usually with the tenant, but we are aware of it and welcome the assistance they give.
Yes, yes.
But don't interfere. Obviously, there's a supervising eye of what's going on.
Yes, good. I mean, it seems an ideal situation for both parties if they're happy to do it.
It bonds the relationships much better.
But I wondered how it was set up, as it were.
Well, it basically became a voluntary thing.
Yeah.
That was much appreciated and welcomed by the plot holders.
Yes.
So is that okay?
Yep.
All right, continuing. Any other questions on page 12? Then we move on to paper D, which is page 13. North Road Plot Holders Committee. Now they are obviously an independent, they're still under us, but they independently work their own allotment. And I think it's pretty obvious of what they do. And our former mayor gets a mention in there for having opened their loo sometime in the previous year. Moving on.
It's the highlight of my year.
Sorry, my fingers are just not working tonight. Continuing the last page on paper D.
Yeah, Chairman, at the very top of the last page, if that's page 16,
Yes.
there's a very exciting prospect, isn't there, with
Yes.
the water supply?
Yeah.
And they've already got the solar power thing in.
Oh yeah, that's very good.
Yeah. So
I don't know what loopholes has to be jumped through to get their own water, but I'm sure they'll do it. I was going to speak to the secretary next week. I'll go for a visit.
yeah.
There's not many people down there at the moment, as you can well understand. And they have 14 people on a waiting list, and you'll see on the very last paragraph, they're asking if the council, they were wondering if the council had any plans to provide more allotments.
Yeah.
That's something that's a bit of a pie in the sky, unless something dropped out of the ocean very quickly for us. But at the moment, I don't think there is a possibility. And the answer is probably no for the moment.
Yeah.
As a response. Okay, then moving on to paper E, page 17, the lovely Crub Garden. I'm sure you've all read that by now. And they are asking for a few things which we will try and help where we can. But unfortunately, it's a tight budget. So, yes, Councillor Roberts.
Well, Chairman, on top of page 18, they're talking about their finances, as you've just pointed out. They are in an ideal position with their semi-independence to apply for grant aid elsewhere. It's not necessarily this council that has to provide. I wonder whether we should be just helping them to, well, be aware of that. I mean, for East Herts Council, for example, it is in Castle Ward, isn't it? Just
yeah.
So it would be a Castle Ward councillor that they would need to mentor any grant application for up to 300 quid, and their composting camping toilet may well be somewhere around that sort of price range. They'll need to contact Claire Pullen at East Herts Council to obtain forms, or at least understand from her the sort of thing that boxes it might tick.
That's for additional grants.
Yes, and then they'll have to find one of the 3 Castle Ward councillors, which will be easy enough to do what the district council likes them to do, which is to have a mentor.
But thank you, Councillor Roberts. That's very encouraging, very useful. Moving on to, we're still on. No, we're moving on now to paper F, which is on page 19. That's the report to Community Services, the agenda allotment tenancy survey. Now, I would expect probably there's a few questions here. Everybody's had time to read them. First of all, on page 19, have we any queries? Okay, then turning over to page 20. Some very useful information has come out of it. And finally, on page 21, is recommended that the committee consider the areas and concerns identified by the respondents to the survey, agree the next steps and any further action to be undertaken as a result of the survey responses. Note the report.
I wanted to ask about I think the Folly Island, they're talking about an unstable wall, and I wonder whether we had any more information about that, and whether that was like a serious matter that we're aware of, or what's the situation with that? It mentions an unstable wall in near the towpath.
The supervisor, Stuart Baker, is aware of it, and in conjunction with the administration supervising manager, Nick Kirby, we will be coming to a conclusion very shortly as how to stabilize that and put it correctly. And they will be told that the allotment members by an email from Susie. Okay?
Chairman,
Yes?
I mean, I think it was a very useful exercise, wasn't it? And a pretty good response given the levels that we normally get, and extremely mixed. So it's quite hard to draw.
It is. We
conclusions
down and look through it. Majority of people I found from reading through it are content and happy. There are suggestions to tell us all bog off on occasion, and other ones where there are very useful suggestions.
Yeah.
But again, it's something that you would have to plan and finance for as a future project, unless it is a health and safety issue.
I was quite amused by several people saying stop councillor involvement, which is quite hard to do since it's fairly fundamental. But on a more serious thing, the big debate is the security issue, and I know it's one that is important to you, Chairman, but there are quite a lot, 16 people, and I was very moved really by the criticism of the person whose 84-year-old mother was having difficulty getting in, and so that I think remains, as we go forward from the COVID situation, something we ought to keep looking at.
It is by no means a foregone conclusion that we are going to suddenly open up the gates tomorrow. The pandemic is very much going to be our master and how we respond. You will also have seen that we've now put sanitary things, whatever they are, to press, and they can clean their hands when they go in and when they come out. So we are trying very hard to ease and work with the plot holders. And as I said, the majority of that 136 were genuinely content with some recommendations for what they might like to see in the future.
Yeah.
Can I just raise that at the councillor surgery, when I was there with Councillor Sarton, one of the plot holders in Cromwell was unhappy about the gates being closed at Cromwell, and she made the point that we haven't done it at any of the other sites, and that in COVID it was an increased risk that people have to open and shut the gates.
Well, you will know if you have, and I'm sure you did in the beginning, see what's happening, because you have someone down on the Cromwell Road that you walk to or visit or whatever, or a family member that has a plot down there, do you? Have I got that?
Yeah, I know people who've got plots there, more than one.
One of the issues that, and I'm not going to make a great meal out of this at the beginning, was the number of people that were simply swanning through with dogs with no consideration for the Mudlarks people and for the other people on site. They were throwing their poo bags all over the place, and they were not conforming to, not that the practices had been forced in at the time, but he had to do something because the plot holders were up in arms. And that was the plot, or that was the choice that I made, and I have no regrets of doing so, because every plot holder I talked to might have an issue, and we've changed the locks several times to make the tumblers bigger, and I don't know what we can do. I just can't see us at this moment in time opening it up freely, because there's still a danger that people will go through with their families on a Sunday afternoon walk, and they could be sharing it or could be getting it from. So I think in the best interest of all, we will maintain the status quo until the government tells us otherwise. And that's my answer, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Chairman, can you see me?
Sorry.
Hello. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, there's
Sorry.
an echo, but yeah.
I just wanted to say, in response to Councillor Dar, that the seal allotment is also closed and has a lock on it, and there's a padlock on there. So we are conscious of certain things. The gates at Hartingford are closed usually, and there's a padlock on that and open during the day. Yeah. Because we've got someone looking after that as well. So I'm unsure about obviously Folly, because obviously we've got the entrance off the towpath as well as the other side gates. So that's all I can give you on that. Mr. Chair, also I'd like to just comment on the point 3.11 on the bottom of 20, which actually says the majority of respondents were quite positive about the way the council manages the sites. And obviously there were some good comments concerning Susie and obviously her way of dealing with some of them. So, I think we're trying our best in extreme circumstances.
And I think we're doing well, Susan.
I think we're doing the best we can. I think there's always more to do, but I think it's taken people by surprise how long the COVID pandemic has gone on, and everyone keeps hoping we're going to come out of it, and eventually we will, and we will be able to do more for our sites.
Absolutely.
Chairman, one observation I've noticed today, in fact, that one set of allotment holders is setting up a social media forum for themselves.
Yes.
Is there a way? I mean, we ought really to understand the intelligence that gives us. I don't know whether we're allowed to be members of that forum, because where there's discussion, sometimes the introduction of a little fact is useful, just to keep the debate sensible. So apparently the 3 allotment sites have got their own forums, and that, or does that come under the heading of want to keep councillors out of it and talk to each other only?
Well, I understand what you're saying, and we have looked and thought about that, but one of the difficulties is that not everybody is on the net and has the ability, and it worries me that you then have a dominant force that will be excluding other people, and I think it needs further looking at. I'm not saying no completely. It needs, and I can't stop them, or you can't stop them for what they're doing, and they may decide, like any of these sites, to have a little chat among themselves. And I would hope that whatever that chat brings, it might bring something to us to get the feeling of those people that are in it.
Yeah.
And we can respond accordingly. That's the only way I can describe it. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I'd also like to add on Councillor Ruffles' ideas. We've got to be careful, as you say, of overstepping the mark, but one would hope that if they have got things on social media and they need an answer, they would come to a councillor who they know, or bring it up at our relevant surgeries. I mean, obviously I know that you know a lot of people, but also they could feed back to the town council themselves as well, and that could then either come to yourself or people who are sitting on this committee. So I think that's another way forward, is maybe whoever's setting them up saying, we could help them, or maybe just point that out to them, that if they need some sort of information, we could probably get it from our officers.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed there was one suggestion amongst all the thing of a weekly newsletter, which I think is I would probably stretch it to say in a monthly rather than a weekly, where all the information people might want. But then I asked myself, we have Susie Visor who sends out continuous emails and updates. I don't know what additional things we could add to that. But it's food for thought, and certainly hasn't gone by me completely. And I'd like to look at that and see if there was any way we could perhaps create something and make sure everyone was involved. Sorry, you wanted to speak, Councillor Rocklands, apologies.
No, not really, Chairman, but I do. I mean, I value so much myself listening to or reading the exchanges on these forums, and sometimes it's shock horror because people are way off beam in their understanding of, and other times you get a real feel for things. So I was just wondering how we could in the best possible way, friendliest way, and make sure we can somehow, as a committee, remain informed, because we're up to date-ish really with the survey, but we're not going to do another survey for 18
Well,
months.
I wonder if other committee members have any feelings on this.
Yeah, that was just my kind of
Point
interest rather than
I think it's something that demands further investigation, and not to be just left in the bucket, but to be at the top of the pile and see how we can perhaps investigate. And maybe it might not be a bad thing to have a short brief at the next committee meeting as to what progressions can have and how they can take place.
Yeah.
How does that run? Is that okay?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, Chairman. And I mean, for some people, very few people realise that this committee is very much a public committee, and the papers are very public as well. So every now and then, I wouldn't think many plot holders are going to be that interested to read our papers every 8 weeks, but some will if they know they're there. And I think there's a general ignorance about the way in which we debate in public, as it were. We have just one member of the public here this evening. I wonder how many others have read the agenda and know the sorts of things and the way in which we discuss them. So if we could push that out as individual councillors to any of the groups we happen to be linked with, I think that may just be helpful.
Okay. Is someone else saying?
I was just going to say, I mean, the thing about Cromwell Road seems a bit different to the others. Like, I mean, North Road plot holders, I can see they're quite distinct and they've got their own structure. I mean, the other one, I'm not aware that Benja, which I know better, has any kind of committee. I mean, maybe it should do, and it
But
seems
it's
to be
looking like it's going to, having read on the
which will develop organically, I assume. It's going to. We're not going in there and forming a committee, are we? It's just going to happen, which is probably the best way.
Yeah. From having done the Cromwell Road committee, had I not had the pandemic interfere, we would have had our forum properly, and the idea was that myself and my deputy and any one of the committee members would simply be observers, and the forum would get on with running it. And because it's a big site, you got 250 odd plot holders, it's the biggest of all of them, and it's got quite a variety of different things in it that need addressing in a way that pleases everybody. But you won't please everyone all of the time, as you well know. But it has had perhaps a little more attention than the others because it did need sorting out very badly. And I think we are now working to strain, but there is still several things that need to be done, and we are working to get those done. And we'll see as we go forward on this agenda where they come out. I don't want to jump ahead and spoil your fun. Right, we now go to the appendix. That's page 25, page 20, and page 24, and page 25. These are the answers that were given by the various allotments. Anyone? You take that big sigh when
Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Does it get your attention? Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say that across all these, it seems to me that that waste disposal and water distribution is a big issue, bigger
Yeah.
than security or anything else. And that when it comes to later on in the agenda, we need to think about that in terms of any money we agree to spend, that there are several issues, and are we, you know, that those need to be put alongside that when making decisions.
Okay, thank you for that. Page 26.
Mr. Chairman, sorry,
Yes.
my hands up. Sorry, I know you can't see me probably. I also wanted to carry on from Councillor Dar as well and say, obviously, a lot of from the questions, a lot of it is coming back on vacant and offered and unused plots in various in various sites, of which I know we have addressed and we will continue to address. One of the other main concerns was the grass cutting within the allotments, and hopefully when we look at the rules and regulations, you will find that we do trim in between when we can, but really a lot of it is down to the allotment holders taking care of the areas in between their plots, and hopefully this will be better recognised if we can then mark the plots properly with their numbers, so people can understand where their plot ends and where it starts.
Thank you, Councillor Barber.
Thank you.
So page 25, turning over to page 26, page 27, Appendix 1. Then we have the graphs, this is where you have your organic and non-organic waste, question 8. That's on page 28, page 29. And then we have an array of suggestions and comments on page 30 and page 31. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Barber.
Sorry, you can see me, can you? Can you see me?
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure. I just wanted to say, obviously, if you go through some of these as well, some of the questions, a lot of it is to do, another query that's come up is the use of toilet facilities. Excuse me about the banging, I'm sure you've been is the use of or lack of toilet facilities in a lot of the allotments. And I know we're addressing some of them, obviously Cromwell Road to be exact, where we have obviously got a base down, but we've got a problem with the base, which we need to address and should be addressing. But obviously this has come up as well in loads of others. I think the only one it hasn't come up in is Hartingford, where that was a new one. But Benjo also have got a problem, the Folly have got a problem. So I think toilet facilities should be looked at in all of them.
They are all on our forthcoming. They're all on our forthcoming list of to-dos.
Yeah, but obviously taking from these questions from our allotment holders, toilet facilities is a must. And
Very
I think
important,
it'll be one of our first ones we address.
Yeah, understood. Except we will put that on the for review at the next agenda. The toilet facilities and where we have and what we have achieved.
I think, Chairman, we've achieved a lot very recently, but also historically. The allotment toilets are a thing that many allotment sites in other authorities don't have. We've often, when we've looked at the comparable rents that other authorities nearby are charging, that facility isn't there for them. That we've had to consider that in our finance side of things. So we've really, having had those rather grotty toilets for quite a long time, we've been ahead of the game, but we need to keep ahead and certainly make better facilities. Some of them have been pretty awful, but they've been there when other authorities haven't had anything at all.
Well, having come from a health and safety background, it's something that I consider to be a high priority that we'll address as we proceed through this coming year. Page 31. Councillor Dar, did I hear you take a deep
No.
breath? No. Page 32. Page 33. And that is all of the paper F and its appendix. Moving on now, we will proceed to page 35.
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Town Clerk here.
Nice
just to make sure that the committee is cited of the recommendations, and that there's a list of next steps listed. The paragraph preamble starts on page 20, and then the bullet points of the next steps that are suggested is just to make sure that committee is cited of those and approves them as per the recommendation, or does something else, just to make sure we've got that clearly logged.
Sorry.
In fairness, Mr. Chairman, you did mention it, but I think for clarity in the minutes, I think it would be helpful if that was considered as an individual item. Thank you.
Okay. Do I need to do any other comments with the committee for that?
I suppose the recommendations as listed, Chairman.
Yes, that's what I thought we did. So anyway, the recommendations as listed.
And a second there and a show of hands would be helpful.
Second.
Councillor Barber, seconded. All those for? All those against? Okay. Right. Moving on to paper G, page 35. Feedbacks from the allotment community. Page 35. Page 36. The recommendations, consider the feedback received from the groups. Consider what, if any, additional support and assistance could be given to the groups. Notes the report. Everyone happy with that?
Chairman, there's one request for feedback from one of the groups. I think it's the Lovely Grub Garden, isn't it?
Yeah. What I thought about there is writing or sending him a notification of what we've heeded what they've said, and also pointing them in the direction of looking for grants, as you said earlier.
Yes.
I think that would be fair feedback, but I can't see me writing to say I will do, but I can say it's something that's in the future without it being too long looking.
Yes.
It's a double hand to play. You know, it's really, I need to speak with other people to make sure that the right message goes out, rather than simply saying, yes, I agree, we'll sort that out.
I imagine, Chairman, we just had to look in their report, and where they'd asked a specific question, make sure we responded to it.
That's it. Absolutely. Yes.
Councillor Lynch, I don't know whether it comes in this bit or another part where the Lovely Grub Garden asked about the links with the school that have been raised in the past, and I do.
Further on, that's
further on.
And we did address that, and we'll cover it when we get to it, if that's okay.
Okay.
Councillor Barber, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to say about the Lovely Grub Garden. Obviously, we have an ongoing consultation and issues with trying to get some sort of water there, which would alleviate one of the problems. And going on from what Councillor Dar said also, is the trying to communicate while trying to get schools involved. I wrote numerous times to the school there and never got any reply.
I know.
Then obviously we've been in COVID, so I wrote 3 times before COVID and never got a response. And as it is, obviously we can't do anything at the moment, but it's not from lack of trying that we haven't got anything there, but maybe we could arrange some sort of, you know, once we're out of it, some sort of competition or vegetable growing or open day where councillors go as well. But that could be something in the future maybe we could go for.
Okay.
Sounds a good idea.
Turning over to page 38, I see on the 3rd paragraph down, our next mayor project was to install electric to our storage containers, or major, not mayor, sorry, using solar. They are excellent in how they progress and how they work to sort themselves out. Page 39. There is a bit there at the end about they have a 2-year waiting list and ask if there's any way we could provide more allotments. But the council are not at the moment in this moment in time able to identify land. We're already struggling to get land for the extension of the graveyard cemetery. Page 40. That's the allotment survey, Lovely Grub Garden. Okay. Page 41 hasn't anything on it, and page 42 is intentionally black. Turning to page 43, which is paper H. The agenda is the allotment rules and regulations. The purpose of the report is to consider updating the rules and regulations for plot holders on the allotment sites. Now, there was no pond intended on making things harder. It was to make things clearer for the plot holders to be aware of. So page 43. Page H. The committee approves the updated rules and regulations for the allotment site. The commends the notes, the report. Okay. Sorry, let me just find my way.
Can I ask a question about one of the rules, please?
Of course you can.
Why is there a restriction on the polytunnels? I saw Mudlarks wanted bigger polytunnels, and what's the restriction on having bigger polytunnels?
Can I look you straight in the eye and tell you I don't know? I noted it when I read it, and it's something that I intend to investigate and ask why. One of the things I do know that if you have too many there's high winds that cut along on that allotment, and unless they are very bravely secured, they could be an issue. But I can only tell you it's under investigation. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not going to lie to you. Okay.
Chairman, Councillor Mrs. Bolton.
Sorry, I did that.
Councillor Bolton wants to come in. I do as well.
Can I just ask, please, why the allotments officer isn't attending the meeting? Because some of these questions could be easily answered by her.
She's sick at the moment, but she never has attended a meeting. But it's a fair question.
Okay.
I
didn't realise she was ill, but some of these questions could easily, I'm sure, because she's very experienced, she could have answered them. So it would have been helpful if she'd been present.
What's your answer to that, Mr. Kirby?
I believe that in the past that the Allotment officer has attended meetings. In terms of the question, Chairman, regarding polytunnels, I will have to check again that with the officer concerned, because I'm not too sure either the restrictions on that, I'm afraid.
Well, we'll investigate it anyway. All right, we go to
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, you've got a couple of hands.
Sorry, Councillor Barber.
I think Peter was before me, and then myself, and then Mr. Brady.
And Councillor Brady as well. Chairman, could I just on the polytunnels front jump in, because that was the last topic. the Folly Island conservation area makes a difference, and that leads us to planning considerations. But the Mudlarks quarter is outside the conservation area, so clearly they believe they have a different issue, the same problem, but it won't be covered by conservation area controls. Well, I wonder when Nick is looking into the conservation, to the polytunnels thing, he could just check on what controls there are on all of our allotment sites by East Herts planners. We've had a lot of business with them on Cromwell Road in the past, with the fruit cage, and with the actual building of the hut for mudlarks, and they were controversial in planning terms, not just. So I wonder. It needn't be immediate, but I wonder whether, as part of the investigation, we could know what controls by development management apply to each of our sites.
Give you an answer of a sort on this, because when the pop-up tents they put up, I can't remember the name of them, when we had the bad weather and the kids needed all go in.
Yeah.
I had to, well, not that I had to, but I did bring East Herts Council planning, and I asked, was there any planning permission required? And the answer I got, that unless the item or the tent or the polytunnel, let's say, is cemented to the ground, then that needs planning permission. If it is pegged to the ground, it doesn't. And if it can come down easily, it doesn't. And that was the definitive answer I got. So maybe that's we'll still continue to try and get perhaps a better answer, but that was given to me and satisfied me at the time the controversy was on about the tents they had up, shelters they had up during the bad weather to continue to bring their pupils or gardeners in. Sorry. So I hope that gives you some immediate answer, maybe not the total, but we will go forward and see what else we can find. Happy? Okay, who next? Councillor Brady.
I'm just a little bit concerned about encouraging people to burn the green waste. This is not really a very green way to get rid of any waste at all. So I don't really approve of that. I don't think it's a really good recommendation.
Who recommended that?
It does. It says here, rubbish. The council recommends that all green waste should be composted by individual tenants or collectively in a designated area or burned.
I think that might need to be a bit of clarity on that. I agree with what you're saying. I don't disagree with burning solid wood or items, but not that we need to do burning a lot. But that's one we will relook at. Okay.
Thank you.
Can you please note that, Nick?
Certainly, Chairman. Will do.
Moving on, page 55.
Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Yes, Councillor Barber.
You forgot me. You forgot me.
Sorry, I didn't see you. Because I'm only working on the small screen, my other computer's all out. I'm only seeing 6 on the top.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to go back on the polytunnels. With the Folly Island, I was going to agree with what Councillor Ruffles said about the conservation area, that Susie Wittmer has got information concerning all the polytunnels, because we had the polytunnel come up when we were walking around one of the allotments earlier last year. And she had the reasons why polytunnels weren't allowed in certain areas and on certain sizes, and why on certain areas you allowed them as a one-off. So she is your best person really to ask, because she's got all the information. I hope that will be a...
Thank you. Nick, if we can pursue that, please. Anyone else? Have I missed anyone else? Oh, Councillor Rosemary Bolton.
I'm just wondering, Chair, whether we're actually in a position to be approving this at this meeting, or whether it should be coming to the next one. There are an awful lot of outstanding points.
No, I think we will approve it at the next meeting, just to be safe.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, also I had one other point was when we did look at these rules and regulations on allotments, we talked about the numbering system, yeah, which kind of ties in with what I said before about the strimming of the areas in between the plots. Now, some of them are very, if you look at the maps that we have, some of them are very clear on what ones, whether they're 10 pole, 5 pole, some are split. And this is really difficult. And I think maybe we should put in the fact that the plot should be numbered and should not be taken out, because we had this problem whereby some people removed their plot numbers. And then it's very difficult for people to go down, like ourselves, if you wanted to look at a particular plot and work out which is which. So I think the numbered they should be numbered in some way.
Absolutely, yes.
Removed. So, and I agree with Councillor Bowden that really there's a couple of issues that really need to be ironed out before it comes back to committee, before we actually take a vote on this.
Yeah.
And that everyone is happy with what then is the final outcome of this.
You know, ideally what I'd love to do is to have the maps onto computer so that they are on there and they have a space in each map where if there's a point to be made about a plot, it can be put in there. And I've spoke to Nick about this, and maybe in the future when one of our whiz kid administrators have got time to do this, it's a plan for the future. Right, paper I.
Chairman, have we formally agreed to defer the last?
No, but we are about to. Thank you, Councillor Ruffles. Can I please, do I need a proposer and a seconder? Or do I just simply state that we are deferring it until the next meeting for more clarity?
I propose if necessary.
Okay, seconder.
I can second.
Thank you. And the proposal is that the rule for the allotments is fine-tuned and ensured that all the entries and additions are for the well-being and working ability of the plot holders to be approved by the committee. Bit long-winded, but happy with that. All those for? All those against? Passed. Okay, moving on again, page 55, the Cromwell Road allotment proposal for fence replacement. Now, you will all have read this at the wear end. We had issues with it at the last meeting where it was considered to be too high at 6 foot. And it was agreed that we would go back and look at it. Now, you will see over the further pages, there are pictures of that fence line which has broken pillars, and it was thought over, and I had thought of doing it over a 3-year period with the cost which you see, and that's on page 56. But in the end, at the end of the day, those prices weren't going to remain the same on the following 2 years. So it was thought through that using funds from the reserve is not time limited, so work could be done as a single project. This is paragraph 3.7. Importantly, the reserve is separate from the approved revenue budget for 21-22 financial year and subsequent financial years. Therefore, approval for an allocation of new homes bonus funds to pay for fencing works at Cromwell Road would exert pressure on the 2022 revenue budget, would not exert pressure on the 21-22 budget. Right. I need a proposal. It is recommended that the committee consider the repair options provided.
Excuse me. Could
Yeah.
I say something?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's really relevant, but new homes bonus monies are not going to be paid to town councils anymore. We're going to have to bid for monies for projects in the future.
Yes, we're aware
Are
of
you
that.
aware? You must be aware of that.
Yep.
Right.
So the committee considered the repair options provided. The committee support the work to be undertaken to replace the entire fence with a single project. Can I have a proposal, please?
Can I just ask before we move on to this, that we reviewed we looked at the survey and there are all those issues identified, which we agreed, we noted, and next steps and further actions. Are all those going to be programmed into future meetings?
We're going to try certainly to program them in and achieve some future projection of the issues that were raised. But like everything else, I can't hand on heart tell you that we will achieve them all in one go. It's a stage thing. And I am more aware than anybody of the finances and the requirements that are needed. And if this one major project gets through, then I am really sort of free to move on the other things that are being raised. But I think this is quite a serious one that I want to get out of the way, and therefore I'm asking for an individual to propose. Councillor Ruffles.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Well, I will propose, Chairman. I know this is important for you in particular. I think it's a great deal of money to spend on this particular fence, but you've persuaded me that it would be better to have a contractor on site once and to do the whole job. But the funding, as you've just described, to be spread over 3 years, where we dip into the pot for new homes bonus in the second and third year, having earmarked for that purpose the renewal of the whole fence in one go. So I've come on board. I am a bit reluctant, but you've reduced the height considerably, which and indeed also the cost from an £18,000 sum down to 15-ish. And if we can hold that price by paying it up front and then taking money from our fund over the next 2 years, bit by bit, the new homes bonus pot. I know it sounds a bit obscure, but I think that would be the way that we could explain to the public that this large sum of money was needed.
Okay, can I have a seconder, please?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I'd also just like to thank our civic administrator, Nick Kirby, who did obtain a second quote for chain link fencing to ensure that this was the most cost-effective type of fencing. And I believe that chain link fencing quote was similar, wasn't it, in terms of value, Nick? And therefore there wasn't much saving going to chain link fencing, and obviously this is more secure. So like Councillor Ruffles, I too are very happy now to support this renewal of the fencing funded by the new homes bonus.
Okay, a seconder
and we've got Councillor Brady.
And Mr. Councillor Brady wants a.
Can I ask a question? If the new homes bonus that you're referring to, is this money that you've kept in reserve from previous new homes bonuses?
Yes.
All right. Okay. I understand now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Seconder was Councillor Simon. And you can get it out over the moment. All right. All those for? All those again? It's carried. Just okay. Can the committee commend? I've just done that really to the Finance Policy and Administration Committee to allocate funding from the new homes bonus. strategic fund for these works. Committee noted the report. Okay, moving on to, let me just get through all these pages. The burial statistics, paper J, churchyard maintenance report, page 63. You want to speak, Joseph?
No.
Okay. Page 64.
Chairman.
Yes, Councillor Ruffles.
I think it's unimportant, but I just want to be sure that we haven't slipped up somewhere. At the last meeting, I mentioned that in October, I attended a burial in the North Road Cemetery of someone who has been living away from Harford for a long time. And our table here, the table 2.2, says there are no non-resident burials at that point, and that's what I questioned at our last meeting. I think it was a reopened grave, and so I'm wondering now whether a reopened grave comes up statistically in a different way. So I wonder whether I could just put that question and ask officers to look into it.
Okay, thank you.
No, I don't want to miss out on the money, that's the thing.
You've noted that, Nick?
Chairman, yes, I have. Thank you very much, Councillor Ruffles, for mentioning that. I will investigate. Thank you.
October the 27th was the date of the burial.
Page 65. And then we're going to column J, all the work that's maintaining is done. Page 67. It is recommended that the committee notes the report. Right, this next one, paper K, is quite a sensitive area, and I'm going to ask Mr. Kirby, please, to lead on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this report asks committee to consider providing a memorial in a section of the cemetery where there are currently a number of unmarked infant graves. Committee would have seen a plaque and photos issued earlier today on the type of thing already in place on council land. So it's an example of something else. Committee are invited to consider the provision of a memorial of some sorts, and if so, agree what further work for officers to undertake. Thank you.
Okay, have we any takers across the committee as to what your preference might be in terms of expenditure and properly recognizing the locations? Yes, Councillor Dar.
I wondered whether it would be worth going to an organisation like SANS and asking them if they have any opinions or whether they've done any because they represent neonatal death, whether it might be worth looking to see if they've got any recommendations about this sort of thing or views. Because I think it's quite hard for us. It's quite hard to be sensitive, like you said. It's not, you know, that's just
well,
a suggestion.
you can't just simply one name. It would have to be a memorial plaque of some sort that paid homage to the poor little souls that have gone before us.
Yeah, and that's the advantage actually of the Councillor Cinnamon's suggestion is more generic, isn't it? Whereas the one I think I saw that came through in the papers had a specific name, and maybe going to something that describes what it's about and covering sort of everyone would be more might be might be a good way to go, as opposed to having a name in there. I presume the one that came through in the papers with the name was that the parents that were going to donate it or cover the cost of it.
Not sure, to be honest. Sorry, Nick. Yes.
Sorry, Chairman. Yeah, may I just add to that? Yes. So we had a request originally from a family who were looking for a family member. So it's like, I think their brother or sister. So that's where it came from, and they would obviously wanted to mark them in some way, and that's why I considered the option of putting something, but recognising there may be others in the plot. So that's where the original request came from. What we do every couple of years, we do have somebody else come up and ask, and the cemetery staff do try and do their best to try and show them where they are, and they can pay their respects. But it will be, the suggestion is, could something be put in to mark the area? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Bolton.
I think both councillors Barber and Cinnamon were before me.
Sorry, I can't see.
Sorry.
Councillor Barber, where are you?
Sorry, I'm here. Well, I'm here, but it doesn't matter if you can't see me. I just wanted to say that. Okay. Sorry? I just wanted to say that obviously I read. Can you hear me?
I can.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah. I read Councillor Cinnamon's report, obviously suggestion, and I think having the idea of a plaque would be better than having a huge memorial. Yeah, so that people could then see a place. And I think we discussed this, whereby we've got something similar already in North Road Cemetery, but obviously this would be better rather than having a large structure for a memorial, which I think would be a bit out of keeping with the cemetery in general, but having an area where the plaque was and explaining roughly what it entails.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
I think Councillor Cinnamon.
Chair, I mean, if everyone has had their say, I was going to move to propose that we do investigate erecting a plaque, but that we approach the bear with, the Stillbirth and Neonatal Death Charity, also known as SANDS, for advice on what we might put on that plaque. So as Councillor Dar has said, obviously that they're well versed in this, and they might be able to assist us in a form of words that would be appropriate.
Okay, proposed by Councillor.
That would be my proposal. I don't know whether anyone would like to second that.
I'd second that one. I agree.
Councillor Bolton, all those for and against? Okay, carried. Right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We're moving on to paper L, which is the community service objectives, page 73. I just want to point out at the bottom of it, because there were questions about the website, Ashley Webb Shelter. And you'll see in that second paragraph from the bottom, the Green Space Action Plan requires further details of the heritage status of the Ashley Webb Shelter and indicate the estimated cost of any recommendations, balanced against how it meets the needs of the grounds and their heritage. That's where we are with the Ashley Webb website. Mr. Kirby had a meeting, I think the other day, did you not, with East House District Council?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I did. So we were just discussing the progress of the specification to go out to consultants to actually determine the sort of the heritage status and just a bit of a piece of work to for investigating to provide some recommendations on the shelter and its heritage status, etc. So I'm waiting for a timescale and for CMS to confirm when we could put in a lottery bid as well. So just waiting for that to be confirmed.
Thank you very much. Turning to page 74, still on paper L. Page 75. If I can't see you, please shout if you've got a question? Okay, that's the objectives. Moving on to paper M, the Report of Community Services Committee, the Income and Expenditure 2021. Page 77. Page 78. Page 79. And then we have the table, the National Ledger Codes. There are 3 pages. Page 1, we'll just call it page 1. Page 2 and page 3. Any questions? Okay, that's very timely.
Suppose we note the report, Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Ruffles. Must get it put on the end of the papers because I don't see it, I don't say it. Please note the report. The council should note the report committee. Is that right?
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions? Any other? Well, I think it's been a long evening. There's been lots of information parted and a lot of questions asked and a lot of investigations and fine lining to be done with some of the objectives that we are working with and on. But thank you, each and every one of you, for attending, for your support, and I wish you a very sleeping, happy night. Stay safe, and keep your distance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Night.